what's going on? This is Fun with Azure, Synapse Studio Part 2. So, in Part 1, we looked at the Synapse Studio here, and on the left hand side, you can see that menu here, and here's a bit of a larger image of it. So, we did look at develop actually in Part 1. So, what I want to do now is dive a little bit into the data tab or hub. Let's go over to the portal and have a look what you can do with that one. So in develop, which is here, right, we know there's quite a bit of stuff that we can do: SQL scripts, notebooks, pipelines, etc. We looked at this last time. Now this is data here, right, and there's workspace and a linked section, right? So when you're in the workspace section and you hit that plus button, it allows you for the workspace section basically two things. This is grayed out at the moment here, but SQL database and lake database, and this is preview, right? So it's probably safe to say let's have a look at the SQL database here real quick, but also at the lake database, because this is also quite powerful what's behind this. And then the linked section here is then the other tab. But the interesting part here, this dialog, even when you change over here, you see the same dialog here. So when I can actually generate linked items in both tabs. I don't need to be in one or the other, which is kind of interesting. So let me go to workspace, and then let's generate a SQL database. And this could be a bit confusing here. This is not a SQL Azure database or SQL MI managed instance, right? This is basically just a serverless database. And serverless sample 101. And let me create it real quick. So now it created this serverless sample 101. And you can see I already have a bunch of them here generated. And now we have a table here, right? Well, basically, we have a database structure, but we don't have a table. But we could generate external tables and play with this a bit further. More to that later. I just want to show you, this is where you basically generate the database, and then we could generate external tables that are basically Parquet files in the data lake. Pointing to those, that's just metadata, and on top we'll put views that allow us to query this. Okay, there's actually one way we could really quickly play with this a bit. So let me see. When we go here and to the browse gallery, and let's say we grab the Boston safety data, and quite frankly, I don't know a whole lot about this data, but it's apparently about safety data of Boston. So let me add this data set. Okay. And the Boston safety data is now here. It's actually been added as linked into the city safety Boston. And when I so the interesting part, it's adding like a folder in here, but it doesn't tell me a whole lot. But when I click on the buttons here, on the three buttons to the right, then I get like a SQL script and a notebook. And you remember, right, when I did notebook here, this is when we would need to have a Spark pool, which I don't have provisioned yet. So that's why I'm going to go with SQL. I could generate an external table. And this is interesting because this we could actually place into the database that we generated earlier, right? So let me see. I'm gonna go a different route for now. I'm gonna do this one, and then I'm gonna remove the top 100. And I'm gonna just go here and say create view. Let's say test view, and then as select star from. Okay, star from. Yep. And you can see here it points to that Boston data set. That's basically in build. There's like a storage section that gives us that. Now the important part, I don't want to create this view in master. I want to create it in that database that we just uh, generated, and I believe we did the serverless sample. If not, that's the one that I want to basically create this view in. And then let's run this. And it did successfully run. And you can kind of sense this is the serverless pool that's running this. So now what I want to do, let me go back to that workspace. And if I refresh this, because we basically just generated an artifact in the view section, so that should show up here, and it does indeed. And when I right click here and I say select 100, then it should give me something back here, right? So let's run this. You can see I have data, right? So basically what we did now is I created a serverless database, and then I created a few of the inbuilt Boston dataset into it, right? So that I can then basically have this controlled by that serverless database. And obviously now I can work with it without having that, like that open row set function here. So now I can quite easily do group bys and, you know, whatever heart desires. So I have source, which may be a good column for a group by operation. Group by, and as you see here really bit, this is not about, like, you know, basically data exploration. This is just getting a couple of basic things to work that we can see what this is all about. And then let's see if we can get this count to work. Now keep in mind, I did not generate any table here, right? This is basically, I'm querying the data lake, right? So it says it was constant. Select source count from group by source. Query canceled. Results. So it's running now. Running. And you know, when it runs the first time, it's always a bit slower, but you can see there's stuff coming back. Employee, self-service, blah blah blah. So this is good. And then of course now we could also do a count across the board, right, without the group by. But you know, this is basically normal SQL. That's what I wanted to show. And you know, if you know SQL, you're good here. This is the total amount of records, and then basically here is a drill down by the source, right? And let's see, you see now it's also faster executing. So what I demonstrated here is using an inbuilt data set, the Boston safety data, and storing it into storing the metadata, a few of the metadata into that database, so we can kind of super easily query this. And like I said, this is not a database that we're querying. We just have the metadata in a database. So this is pretty powerful concept here. One thing that I want to show with that real quick is when you go now to monitor and go to the SQL request tab under activities, we can actually see you know, what was done here. So you can see here the execution log, right? So let me go over here a little bit. See, this is me doing the count star from, and this is me doing the group by. The group by comes first here, right? And then this one. And when we look at this, here we have the seconds, and we also have the data, the amount of data processed. This is actually important when it comes to cost, right? Because with serverless, we're gonna be billed and charged on data volume, right? So in contrast to the dedicated pool, where we basically are charged by the resources that were provisioned. So this is that one. So we went into the monitor tab just to show you how this is all connected. But this video basically was now about generating the serverless database. Now there is a lot more that we can do in here. And I think I'm going to show this in the next video, because I want to make sure that these videos don't run too long, so that they're easy to consume. Now, instead of just maybe one more word here, just instead of using a safety Boston data set, what I want to do next time is we will want to bring in our own, right? And we can do this definitely through a data lake, which we have here. And this is already connected, right? And when I go root here, then I see here folders, and this is where I can upload my own data and then query this data. So here's a text file, here's something that I can do. So let's look into this next time and continue the series from there. Thanks for your attention and have a good one. Cheers.